So, Deltarune's Weird Route finally has a continuation, and with the newest chapters being out for over 2 weeks, there have been plenty of details related to the Weird Route that have been found, which of course means we have to go over every single little detail that is different from the normal route in these 2 chapters. And of course, feel free to drop a comment down below about what you consider to be the most interesting thing in the Weird Route. But before getting into the video, I'd just like to say thank you for joining us here, and of course, welcome to Epoch, your favorite place for everything indie game related. And with that out of the way, let's get into the secrets and details from Deltarune's Weird Route in chapters 3 and 4. And yes, there will be major spoilers for Deltarune's latest chapters in this video, so with that, in the Chapter 3 Dark World, there's a unique piece of dialogue only obtainable on the Weird Route, which occurs before the battle that is required to get the Shadow Mantle. Whoever is speaking here, most likely the Shadow Mantle, will mock you or Chris, or possibly both, poking fun at the fact that you can just say it wasn't you who did that to Noelle, as you can both use the other as a scapegoat for the whole situation. After that, the fight will occur as normal and nothing changes throughout the rest of this section, but it is rather strange that the place that basically has an instruction manual for the Weird Route only has a very small change when actually on the Weird Route. After that, in the final section of the Chapter 3 Dark World, you have the opportunity of asking Ralsei how he's doing, after which Ralsei will talk about how you should go to the festival with Susie, but if you say you aren't going with her and choose the prompt saying you're going with Noelle, Ralsei's dialogue will be different on the Weird Route, saying that was a bad choice, though quickly catching himself and saying that Susie should be there too because Noelle might like that. In Chapter 4, when in the church, you normally will have to talk to Alphys and Noelle to get the information that you need about the bunker and the mayor's secret. But when on the Weird Route, Noelle will no longer give you the information. Instead, you'll have to talk to Rudy to gather the information, which is very interesting. Along with that, Noelle's dialogue is different from normal, just talking about how she was singing off key, but then she says, "Can you blame her?" which is most likely because she was distracted because of the strange things that happened. Also in the church, when telling Susie the information, instead of Susie going up to Noelle to ask if they can work on the research project, Noelle will approach Susie in the Weird Route, and when going for a high five with Chris, Susie will be left hanging, which causes her to say that maybe things took a weird route because it's unusual that Noelle would just ask Susie and Chris like that, and also asking if Chris has something against Noelle for some reason. When visiting the hospital after church, you normally will encounter an empty room on the right, or if you attack throughout Chapter 2, then you will encounter Birdley with a broken arm. However, on the Weird Route, when you visit the room, Birdley will be in a comatose state, and there will be a heater next to him that you can use to heat him up slightly, though regardless of what you do, Birdley is still going to be stuck in the bed, and of course when checking the bead toy in the hospital, you will get the text that the blue bead has broken off the path. After going into Noelle's house, you can go into Noelle's room and obtain a pencil which, if equipped, will reveal that there was a thorn in your inventory. Very interesting, as that doesn't appear on the normal route, but we'll get back to that in a minute because when in Noelle's house, a major difference that will occur is instead of getting a phone call from Birdley on the couch, Noelle will instead get called by Carol, the mayor, after which Chris will leave the room, causing the story to proceed as normal by going into December's room. But it doesn't stay normal for very long, as Noelle asks Chris to talk with her, and after putting the soul away in the box, they will both go to Noelle's room, causing some very interesting things to happen. When in Noelle's room in the vent section, Noelle and Chris will be talking about something that happened last night, in which Chris paid Noelle a visit, taking a thorn out of her finger, which is presumably the thorn in our inventory from earlier, but then she will ask if she can say something else, which will allow us to choose Proceed, which when chosen will cause some pretty weird things to happen. After choosing Proceed, you can choose to enter into Chris's body, which when done will let you continue the Weird Route, though at many points you will have the opportunity to abandon the Weird Route by doing the opposite of any of these choices. However, after choosing it wasn't a coincidence, you'll be locked onto the Weird Route for Chapter 4, unable to turn back without quitting out of the game. When locked onto the Weird Route, Noelle will test our ability to read minds, after which we will choose the option to equip the Thorn Ring on her, and when done will cause this creepy scene to play out where a crack appears on our screen, though there were actually 2 other variations of this scene, one being a single pixel and the other being a rose welting away, though they were patched out due to misinterpretation of the whole scene. After this, Chris will take the soul and mercilessly pummel it, after which Asgore will ask if Chris is okay, and then after Chris inserts the soul back into themselves, when checking our HP we can see that it is drastically lowered, half of what it ordinarily should be in the Light World segment. When leaving the household, Susie will talk about how it was weird that Chris and Noelle were alone together and that she wanted more time where the three of them just hung out, but then asks what Chris and Noelle were talking about, which causes a very creepy scene to play out in which the screen gets a slight red hue and a dialogue box with no options appears, extremely disturbing to say the least. When inside the Chapter 4 Dark World, there's a segment with Gerson where he asks you where you think you should be going, and when in the weird route, if you select nowhere, then Gerson will have slightly different dialogue and says that as long as you keep living, everything will be alright, which seems like it may be a little bit more like a warning than a reassurance. When closing our eyes with Ralze, we can choose no twice, leading us to choosing who we want to think of instead of Susie, which ordinarily lets us just think of the night, though on the weird route we have the option of Noelle, causing this extremely disturbing scene to play out in which Noelle says thank you, and then the screen goes completely red, after which Susie asks Chris if everything is alright, saying that they started breathing heavy. After getting the climbing claws, you'll have the opportunity to have a tea party with Gerson after getting one of the sections for the golden piano, which when done will lead to something slightly different happening after Gerson places an extra piece of sugar in Chris's tea, since after choosing not to drink the tea there, Gerson will offer an apple to Chris, which ordinarily Chris just eats normally, though on the weird route, Chris will eat the apple unusually quickly according to Ralze, along with Chris eating the core of the apple, which is quite unusual. When in the Light World section, after going to the left room, you'll be able to listen to a story from Susie about her playing piano when she was young, and afterwards you will have the option of choosing the dialogue prompt that states you will never play the piano again, causing Chris to bite their hand and also causing Susie to not be so happy about it. In the room with the candles, Susie will ask about whether or not the candles are for birthdays, which will lead you to having the response of them being for prayers. After choosing that, you'll be able to choose who to pray for, though when choosing Noelle on the weird route, Chris will kick the shelf on which the prayer candles are on, causing Susie to act with some amount of alarm, telling Chris their name is on there too. When talking with Ralze after the Titan has been defeated, when choosing the option of it's okay not to smile, Ralze will talk about how he's starting to believe that the prophecy can change just like normal, but then starts talking about what the something else would be and asking whether or not it might be worse than the original ending to the prophecy, which judging by how the weird route is turning out so far, it isn't that strange to assume that whatever is going to happen could be even worse than the original ending foretold by the prophecy. Lastly, the scene at the end is different from normal when on the weird route. Instead of Susie and Chris both being on the screen, it will just be Chris receiving a call, one from Mayor Holiday about Noelle being excited to see us tomorrow at the festival, which is extremely ominous considering everything that happened throughout chapters 3 and 4 in the weird route. But with that being said, that is everything about the weird route in chapters 3 and 4, and with chapter 5 on the horizon, presumably having a larger weird route role than either of the most recent chapters, we can certainly look forward to many more weird route shenanigans in the future. And of course, if I missed anything, then please let me know in the comment section down below. Also, considering this is my third video about Deltarune chapters 3 and 4, if you're watching this before Deltarune chapter 5 releases, then consider yourself a semi-OG. You made it here just as the hype around Deltarune has turned more into an air of speculation about what's to come in chapter 5, and of course, the hype around the most recent chapters is still fresh in the community. But also, I would like to thank you for supporting this channel while it's still young, as it will help me continue this channel in the future. And speaking of supporting the channel, there are several channel members that I would like to shout out for helping this channel lift off the ground a little bit more. If you're looking for a little bit of extra content, then I do plan on live streaming sometime this week trying to no-hit the Roaring Night fight. And with all that out of the way, this has been Epoch, your favorite place for everything indie game related, and I hope I'll see you all in the next one.